I was on a glacier hike in Vatnajökull, Iceland, surrounded by endless blue ice and deep crevasses. It's breathtaking, but also, a giant block of frozen water. A guy in the group, dressed in brand new, stiff North Face gear from head to toe, stops the guide. He taps his crampons on the ice, looks concerned, and asks, "This is extremely slippery. Hasn't the park service heard of putting down some rock salt for liability reasons?" The guide just stared at the miles of ancient ice and slowly shook his head. You can't de-ice a national park just because you didn't practice walking. Then I was in Sydney, Australia, standing in front of the Opera House. Up close, the tiles are actually a mix of cream and white, not pure, bright white. A woman with a visor and a fanny pack is squinting at the sails, looking genuinely disgusted. She turns to a security guard and says, "I'm disappointed. It looks dirty. Do you guys not have a budget to pressure wash this thing once a week?" The guard just looked at the harbor and sighed. Architectural texture is often wasted on people looking for a sterile kitchen countertop. In Rome, Italy, I was walking past the Roman Forum looking at the columns and the rubble that has been there for 2,000 years. A guy in a baseball cap is leaning over the railing, chewing gum loudly. He points at the ruins and says to his wife, "I don't get why the city doesn't just finish the demolition and put up a nice shopping mall here." A local archaeologist nearby looked like she was about to throw a trowel at him. History isn't just a placeholder for a future Gap outlet. I visited a traditional bistro in Paris, France. It was crowded, noisy, and smelled amazing. A couple sits down next to me, and the husband immediately waves down the waiter. He points to the carafe of room temperature water on the table and snaps, "In the States, water comes with ice automatically, so run back and get me a bucket of cubes." The waiter looked at him with that specific French disdain that basically means, "Get out." Thermal shock is not a standard part of the European dining experience. Switzerland is famous for its quiet trains. I'm on the train from Zurich to Bern, in the designated silence car. It is dead silent except for one guy. He's on his phone, booming voice, discussing a real estate deal in Florida. When the conductor asks him to whisper, he holds up his phone and says, "I'm closing a deal in Eastern Standard Time, so your little library rules don't apply to international business." The conductor simply pointed to the door and waited. Your time zone does not grant you diplomatic immunity from basic manners. In the Australian outback, the flies can be relentless. I'm at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, wiping sweat off my face. A tourist in a clean white shirt is swatting the air frantically, looking on the verge of tears. He screams at the attendant pumping gas, "Who is in charge of pest control out here? I want to speak to the manager of this desert." The attendant just spit on the ground and kept pumping. Nature's ecosystem does not report to a customer service department. I was at the Tower of London in the UK, looking at the crown jewels and the ancient stone walls. A guy in a suit, clearly a developer type, is tapping the stone wall evaluatingly. He turns to a beefeater guard, who is a decorated military veteran, and asks, "With this location right on the river, have you guys considered converting these barracks into luxury condos?" The beefeater remained motionless, likely imagining a medieval punishment. 1,000 years of royal history is not a real estate investment opportunity. Barcelona, Spain, is dominated by the Sagrada Familia, which has been under construction for over 140 years. I'm standing there admiring the cranes and the spires. A guy with a stopwatch around his neck looks at the scaffolding and shakes his head. He turns to a priest walking by and says, "If you hired an American contractor, we'd have this punch list finished in 6 months, tops." The priest just smiled and kept walking. Art dedicated to the divine operates on a slightly different timeline than a strip mall. In Dublin, Ireland, I was at the Guinness Storehouse at the top floor bar with the 360-degree view. A guy takes a sip of his complimentary pint, makes a face, and sets it down. He leans over the bar and asks the bartender, "This is too heavy. Can you pour me the Guinness Light version, like we have back home?" The bartender looked at the glass as if it had been insulted. You don't ask the source of the river to water itself down. Amsterdam canals are beautiful, but they generally don't have railings because the Dutch assume you aren't an idiot. I'm watching a boat go by when a nervous woman grabs a stranger's arm. She points at the water's edge and shrieks, "This is a massive lawsuit waiting to happen. Where are the OSHA-approved safety barriers?" The local shook her off and kept cycling. A city built on water assumes you have the common sense not to walk into it. Munich, Germany, is still very much a cash-based society in many places. I'm at a traditional beer hall, and a guy tries to pay for a pretzel with an Amex Black card. The server shakes her head and says, "Cash only." The guy stands up offended and announces, "My credit card is valid in 140 countries, so you are legally required to accept it." The server just took the pretzel back. Visa's terms of service do not override Bavarian tradition. I was at the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. The path up is slippery marble and uneven rock. A man in dress shoes is sliding around looking furious. He stops to catch his breath and yells at a tour guide, "Why haven't they poured a concrete ramp up here yet? This is discrimination against people who hate hiking." The guide just looked at the ancient citadel and shrugged. Pericles didn't design the fortress with modern loafers in mind. At the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, the coral is colorful, but the water absorbs red light as you go deeper. A guy comes up from a dive, pulls out his regulator, and looks annoyed. He yells at the dive master on the boat, "The fish aren't as bright as they are on the Discovery Channel. Can you adjust the lighting down there?" The dive master just started unhooking his tank without a word. Physics creates a filter that your television usually corrects for you. Lisbon, Portugal, is covered in beautiful blue tiles called azulejos. I'm admiring a building facade when a woman stops next to me. She touches the wall, wrinkles her nose, and says to her husband, "Looks like they decorated the whole city with spare bathroom tiles from the 1980s. A local walking by almost dropped his groceries. Centuries of ceramic art heritage are not defined by your master bath renovation. Finally, I was in Tromsø, Norway, in the middle of summer where the sun never sets, the midnight sun. It's 2 a.m. and bright as noon. A guy in the hotel lobby is screaming at the night porter, wearing an eye mask on his forehead. He slams his hand on the desk and demands, "I paid for a night's sleep, so I expect you to turn off the sun immediately." The porter just politely handed him another set of blackout curtains. The solar system does not offer a dimmer switch for tourists.